Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Hugh Fertility Centre podcast series, aimed at giving you an insight into what it is that we do here at the centre, as well as hopefully answering some of the questions you may have while looking forward to or undergoing fertility treatment. Over the next half hour, we'll be discussing New Year's resolutions and how lifestyle changes such as healthy eating or exercise can help you with your fertility issues. Hello, I'm joined today by Paul Mallanaphy, Biomedical Andrologist, and Pauline Green, Consultant Gynaecologist here at the Hugh Fertility Centre, and we're going to be having a conversation for about half an hour on the topic of New Year's resolutions. You know, what can you do in the new year, looking to a more healthy lifestyle? What can you do to improve your fertility? Or if you're already pregnant, what can you do to aid that pregnancy? So we'll get started. So to both of you, New Year's diet, New Year's resolutions going to be coming in. People are going to be making changes to their diet, to their lifestyle. Generally speaking, as far as fertility is concerned, what to eat and what not to eat. What's the good stuff? What's the bad stuff?
Well, if I make a start, Paul,
Yeah,
I think that generally I've always said that if it's in a box, in a tin or in a packet, probably avoid it. And if you can start with all your fresh ingredients, ideally, of course, organic, although accept the added expense of that. But cook from all the basic ingredients, and you can't go far wrong. Obviously, with some of the protein sources like chicken and turkey, you have to be a little bit more careful, particularly if you are careful that you're cooking thoroughly, so that you're not putting yourself at risk of any food poisoning. This is getting less likely now with all the added checks that they put through. I mean, I think the days of salmonella with chicken are pretty well over. But it's just good common sense to cook through properly. If you're cooking a whole bird, make sure that you've checked that the inner parts of the bird are thoroughly cooked. But I think the basic principles there is make sure that you're getting your fresh fruit, your fresh veg, your good quality protein, and try and avoid the fast foods. Try and avoid the ready sources of sugars, your biscuits, your cakes. They're just empty calories.
Yeah.
They really are not doing anything for you. Soups are fantastic. If you can make your own, you can use your leftover ingredients, whiz them all in together. Bob's your uncle, fabulous meal. So it's eating regularly, eating good quality, and trying to avoid packaged foods. And I guess, Paul, you'd be agreeing with that.
In total agreement. I probably, whenever I'm talking to patients, I like to hark back quite a number of years and go back to the good square meal. Essentially. So if you look at your plate, you've got all the food groups represented there, but as you say, prepared by yourself in proportions that are agreeable to you. I tend to suggest maybe also asking the patient to look at the size of the plate that they use, which seems a strange thing to say until you consider that a lot of people are brought up being handed like a full plate of food, and to maybe try and kid your mind into thinking that you are receiving a full plate of food, you maybe look at the size of the plate that you use. But anyway, going back to a good square meal, Pauline and I did start a conversation off, we're yet to finish it actually, about how you can't kind of outrun or out-exercise a bad diet.
That's a good point.
I'm known on the unit for doing a lot of cycling and a lot of running, but I also know that my diet needs a lot of attention. So yes, definitely. Foods to include, if you're a boy, well, boy and girls really, I suppose, vitamins and minerals, make sure you have plenty of those. We get asked all the time about supplements. There's nothing necessarily wrong with supplements if you think as though you need them. Specifically for boys, supplements are vitamin E, vitamin C, zinc.
But you would say, if you have an aversion to taking supplements, or if you feel like that's a bit of a non-natural way of doing it and you are trying to pursue more of a natural access to those vitamins, what foodstuffs would I be eating or drinking?
Right, sure, yeah. So fruit and vegetables, apples are surprisingly high in vitamin C. It shocked me when I found out many moons ago. I thought it was just oranges. Dark green vegetables, kale, broccoli, that kind of thing, they would be good for iron. I guess iron's important because it will help you kind of generate more red blood cells to help any red blood cells that you've essentially tired out through exercise.
Yeah.
How it relates to fertility, again, a good diet will help your ability to perform exercise, and as I say, it will give you those essential vitamins and minerals which are referred to as essential, and because your body can't store them. Which is why you need to kind of, I think it's why the 5 a day was first suggested. It's not as though you can have a healthy meal or a healthy weekend and then essentially bank those vitamins and minerals. You need to be eating them every single day because your body can't store them. And even if you have a fantastically healthy meal at the weekend, once the body has taken from it what it needs, the rest will just be...
Would this be the same as kind of the effects? I've read a couple of articles recently about the effects of binge drinking. So if you must drink, to spread it out over the space of a week would be, and this is not in reference to fertility, this is just a general comparison to what you were just saying, it's better to stretch it out over the week rather than to just go crazy on a Saturday and your body having to recover from the assault of that. Or
well, I think both are wrong. I mean, regular drinking within the limits is okay, but it's a cumulative effect. Every drink that you take puts a stress on the liver. The liver has to metabolise that alcohol using its enzymes, and it sometimes gets overloaded. So this is why we're seeing alcohol problems in particularly the middle classes, because of all the interest now in designer beers, designer wines, all the new gins coming out. When you look on the shelves, it's overwhelming. Used to be Gordon's gin, I think, in the old days, and now there's about 50 gins
gin
that are all... Gin is very much in it.
That leads us on to that question of alcohol, when obviously I think it's widely known that drinking while pregnant's a big no-no, but I don't think many people consider drinking whilst trying to become pregnant or trying to conceive being that much of an issue.
Well, don't forget your sperm has been made all the time, so alcohol's a toxin. We are born as females with all the eggs we're going to have, and we've got to remember that we don't want to damage them. So I think everything that we do in life is a choice, isn't it? So everything in moderation, looking after yourself, because you are what you eat, you are what you put in, and if you keep putting toxins in, it's going to potentially have an effect on your own health, and if you are unhealthy, then you're understandably going to be less likely to be fertile. I think, you know, there's always exceptions to the rules. So we see people often comment, it's not fair. I know drug addicts who are getting pregnant so easily. I know alcoholics who are getting pregnant. And of course that's the case, but there are also damaged children because of the effects of these toxins during pregnancy. How much influence that has during the time of conception, when the early embryo is going through the process of, you know, embedding in the uterus and the nutrition that it's getting in those very early stages. I don't think it's going to be easy to quantify that. I mean, there's a lot of research that is going on about what is happening at the time of conception and the influences of drugs particularly, but it's just common sense, I think. One has to take a pragmatic approach to this and say, look after yourself, eat well, avoid toxins. And certainly the other thing that, remembering, just touching on it there, is if you're on regular medication, see your GP and make sure that these medications are safe. And if you're going, you know, to treat a cough, cold, always talk to the pharmacist if you're trying or could be in early stages of pregnancy. Always check to make sure that it's safe and can't have an adverse effect.
Okay. Yeah.
Went a bit off topic there, but
No, that's fine. That's what we're trying to do. So moving on a little bit, exercising. After we spoke about the diet, we spoke about the good, the bad, and then the next obviously logical step that a lot of people will be making is to sign up with the gym, start exercising, dust the bike off, dust the running shoes off, see what if you can shed the winter pounds. So exercising with fertility, is it good? Is it bad? Too much? Too little?
It's better.
it is.
It's very definitely better. Again, and I can understand why a lot of frustration and a lot of confusion exists. We rely on, we in the fertility business, in the scientific business, rely on research that's undertaken. And that research gets published in journals that are accessed by other medical staff and other scientists by a way of communicating information and trying to get the best thing for the patient. Now, unfortunately, these journal articles will then get picked up by the popular press and reported, not in the wrong kind of way, but they'll get reported perhaps a couple of weeks or a couple of months after another study which will have presented information from the wrong angle, or from a different angle,
Yeah.
let's say. Okay, so exercise is better. There's a lot of research to suggest which exercise is good and which exercise is bad, and certainly from a male point of view, for instance, cycling is deemed as not the greatest of exercise to take. But I'd like to pick up on something that Pauline said just before about everything in moderation. Okay, so the reason why cycling, and to a certain extent running as well, is deemed as being not great for your fertility is because of heat production. Okay, so heat production around the area of the testes. Now, the testes hang from your body for a reason. Okay, so the body operates at around about 37 degrees Celsius, whereas the ideal temperature for sperm production is a degree or two lower than that. Okay, now if you do exercise of a particular type or too much of it, in the case of cycling, then it's thought that those the heat around the testicles is too hot for sperm production. Sperm production will either become inefficient or will shut down. A lot of the scientific literature out there is obviously frustrated, is to a certain extent skewed because of two things. A lot of the studies that take place around exercise and male fertility either happen with elite athletes, okay, who to a certain extent it could be argued do too much exercise, or they find research has been undertaken in a centre like ours, and the cohort of people that we're looking at have been referred to us because them and their partner have been finding it difficult to conceive. Okay, so what I mean by that is I guess there aren't enough studies that will take 1,000 people from the general population and see how that works. Okay, so again, possibly a little bit off topic, but essentially from a male point of view, there's a lot of studies to say that aerobic and resistance as per training is the best form of exercise you can take to have a positive effect on you and a positive effect on your fertility.
Yeah.
There are other benefits, not necessarily from just a physiological level. Of course, exercise makes you feel better and increases your libido, makes you lose weight, and again, tied in with some of the other aspects that we've talked about recently, will help with your fertility.
Yeah.
So, again, everything in moderation.
But there are some sports you'd say better, some sports slightly worse. So swimming, yeah, maybe a little bit better.
Yep,
as long as the water's not too warm.
Yes. Yeah,
cycling, maybe not as much. But generally speaking, a little bit, not too much, and kind of.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And I think there's also the element that if you're used to doing a lot of exercise and you're well with that and your body's used to it, then that's fine. I think if you were trying to get pregnant and you decided that you wanted to run the marathon and you're going to suddenly put in a huge amount of exercise, that's probably not ideal. Whereas if you've always been an endurance athlete, then you're probably okay. But I would still say cut down on the endurance. I've spoken to people who who choose to do a half marathon at the weekend and 10k every night, and they're in the gym, and that's too much. That's putting an enormous strain. Very healthy, of course, and they're probably extremely fit, but that's taking a lot of the nutrition, and it's not really allowing the body to function, and often it would upset the menstrual cycle, inhibit ovulation, which we've seen in a lot of the elite Olympic level.
So do you think that's due to a kind of the body tells itself that it's not in the kind of, for lack of a better word, the motherly state? It's more in a kind of a performance, the working state.
I think that's a good way of looking at it, and just cutting down a bit, just allowing the body a bit more time to function in its other ways, if you like.
So if I'm a person who does almost no exercise, trying to boost fertility, maybe yoga once a week, maybe just an hour, maybe 2 hours in the gym once a week or something like that, perfectly fine. It's going to increase my fertility ever so slightly without ever doing
walking. So simple exercise. Go for a walk, buy a dog, or do one of these walk my puppy. There's things where you can hire a dog and go for a walk, and that can be any time of the day, of course. And going out in the fresh air, it's a feel good factor as well. It helps with the stress. Taking the stairs instead of the lift. It's just simple things can improve your general health, and entering a pregnancy, it's good to be healthy because again you're wanting to give them the best new home.
That's
for
a good thing you touched on there, in the kind of like the happy factor. If you exercise more, you're in a better mood, maybe your body starts to release endorphins. Obviously that's going to have a positive effect on your fertility as well.
Correct.
Very interesting. Okay, well, moving on a little bit more. We'll assume that we've had our fertility treatment, it's been successful, we've been able to conceive. Maybe we are pregnant coming into the new year, or maybe we are about to become pregnant, but we still want to keep exercise and we still want to keep living healthy for the sake of the healthy pregnancy. Again, how much is too much? Should we be doing any at all?
Absolutely, you should exercise in pregnancy because that's really important for general well-being in pregnancy, and reduces people who exercise correctly and moderately and not over-exercising obviously have better chances of having a healthy baby and a healthy delivery. Their muscles work well for when it comes to the time of delivery. I think that one of the things we perhaps haven't touched on just yet, before entering pregnancy, try and reach the right BMI. So we should be in the healthy BMI range. So we've talked about losing the few pounds after Christmas, but if you are carrying weight and you're over the normal BMI, that will reduce your chances of conception, but it will also increase your risk of all the complications of pregnancy. So getting down to the normal weight for height, or the healthy weight for height, is absolutely a positive goal before you get pregnant.
And BMI is a very important phrase, and you're right to say we haven't touched on it, and I think a lot of people make the confusion of thinking that just generally losing weight is a good thing, when skipping meals and is not healthy in any way, shape or form. So BMI is obviously something that's didn't even, it wasn't a phrase widely known up until fairly recently, I think, for a lot of people, and it is probably the more important point to stress, particularly, obviously, if we're having a conversation about IVF. NHS funding through IVF will only be if you're under a certain BMI.
You've got to be under 30, a BMI, which is still actually in the overweight range. But so between 19 and 25 is considered a normal BMI. Now there's going to be the exceptions to the rule, so people who perhaps are in sports such as rugby, for instance, they may be really heavy for their height, but it's all muscle and it's all really healthy weight. So there will always be those slight exceptions to the rule, but as a general, just a guide that you want to have And you can get your BMI charts online. It's really simple, just to say, right, this is my height, this is my weight, am I in the green range between 19 and 25? The NHS will fund up to a BMI of 29.9, so just under the 30. So it allows for leeway with that. But the reason for that is that it's not as successful if the BMI is higher than that. So with the NHS being really strapped for funds, it's wanting to make the best investment and give you the best chances.
Exactly.
And actually, just losing weight, often you get pregnant naturally
anyway.
without any of that.
Of course,
so I think the first thing is, before we get to the pregnancy, make sure that you're, again, entering that pregnancy with your right weight, and then maintaining your weight. The so-called ideal is a 10 kilogram weight gain during pregnancy. I think that's as rare as hen's teeth to do that. It's, and a lot of women just go back to that eating for two. You know, it was probably a pre-war thing. You know, looking after, or even maybe during the war, just grab the food when you've got it, because food wasn't as plentiful then, and we had to look
type
after
of food as well.
Absolutely.
Obviously, less saturated fats, less salts, less sugars, things
exactly.
like that.
It's all these, and it comes back to what I said. If it's in a packet, it's got all these additives in it. Whereas if you and in the old days, they didn't have packaging of food. They didn't have all this plastic wrap around the broccoli. They just.
And I think now as well. I think the old argument used to be. I know, you know, my parents have probably said that, you know, it's too expensive to eat healthy, to eat fresh food and fresh fruit, and it is a cop out, I think, isn't it? And a cop out that I'm sure I've probably been guilty of and other people have, but. You know, it's nowhere near as expensive to probably eat healthy now as it might have been in the past.
I'll give you a little example of this. I went to Tesco. I shouldn't say the name, but I did go to Tesco the other day, and they have a crate of fresh vegetables with the sell-by date today. And I picked up some, and they were pristine runner beans, 11p. 11p. The cauliflowers on the shelf were £1. The cauliflowers in this basket were 49p.
So to say it's
just go and look, go and shop in any of the local supermarkets. They still have Co-op do the still good range or something, and you know, you can go and pick up this beautiful food, all fresh ingredients, for a fraction of the cost.
I don't think there's anything in my fridge without a yellow reduced label.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's difficult though, because we're also facing kind of a consumer world that also wants us to consider quantifying how much our time is worth, as though time is money. The mantra of the 80s and 90s. But it's worth spending that time, that money, as you say, to prepare fresh. There's a lot of things coming back around again. We recently invested in a slow cooker, again, not new technology, especially at winter. You've got your kind of casseroles, or your kind of, to be quite local, you've got your scouse that you can as long as you prepare it whenever you want to prepare it, you can set the timer, come home, and straight away have fresh food instead of the kids having to wait half an hour, an hour, complaining, give them a snack, keep them quiet, that kind of thing. So all of these things are out there, we just need to...
And it's good, you know, you say something like scouse, I think habitually people would have thought that was a bit of a no-no, you know, it's fatty, it's that kind of thing, but if you prepare it yourself, it's essentially just quite lean meat with vegetables and broth. It's, you know, it's a thickened soup, as we said before, so everything within moderation. Well, that's brilliant, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up there. We touched on pretty much everything that we needed to. We'll be doing these series of podcasts every single month, so keep an eye out for the one in the future. Thanks for joining us.